You're not on the list. The words sliced through the gate lounge like the first crack of thunder before a storm. Step aside. First class is not for you. The voice belonged to Marissa Kent, gate supervisor for Horizon Airlines, pressed into a Navy suit too stiff for the heat of confrontation but just tight enough to carry her ego. And in front of her stood a woman who hadn't said a word. Not yet. She didn't need to. Not when the entire gate had just gone quiet. Two TSA officers approached from behind, summoned without hesitation. One moved left, the other right, flanking the woman in the coral dress like she was already guilty of something. Their radios buzzed, their posture locked. One placed a firm hand near her shoulder. "She's holding up boarding," Marissa said louder, making sure others heard. "We can't allow fake upgrades." The woman didn't respond. Her hands stayed by her sides. Her expression? Stillness, too calm to be confused, too deliberate to be scared. She didn't wear a logo. No designer luggage, no diamond rings or power suit, just a leather carry-on and a phone she hadn't touched until now. She picked it up slowly, placed one AirPod in her right ear, and said 4 words without blinking. "It's happening. Start recording." Before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you believe in dignity and justice, hit like and subscribe. These stories spark change. And we're glad you're here. Now, back to Ava Monroe. The officers glanced at each other. One reached for her boarding pass. "Let me see that," he demanded. She handed it over without resistance. Seat 1 Ampere, paid in full, under the name Ava D. Monroe. Still, Marissa snatched it from the officer's hand, skimmed it like it was a cheap printout. "She must have swapped this," she muttered. "You don't just get seat 1 Ampere. The man behind Ava Business Class, platinum medallion tag swinging, chuckled under his breath. "Maybe she got lost on her way to coach," he whispered, not quietly enough. Ava's head turned slightly, just enough to clock his face. Still no reaction. Still no words. Just that silence again, too dangerous to dismiss. Then came the last blow of part 1. Marissa raised the pass high above her head and tore it in half. "You'll have to fly economy like everyone else." Except she wasn't like everyone else. She just hadn't told them yet. Cut to black. They thought she was in the wrong place. But she was exactly where she meant to be. Ava Monroe didn't stumble into gate B7. She chose it. No assistant. No media team. No special flag attached to her reservation. Just a direct booking. First class. Seat 1 Ampere. Paid in full under her name. And she dressed the part not of a mogul, but of a mystery. A sleeveless coral sheath dress. Simple. Clean. Low-heeled black pumps that didn't shout but whispered prepared. No handbag. No watch. Just a slim phone. 1 AirPod. And silence like a second skin. This wasn't a mistake. It was a stress test. For the airline. Because for the last 3 quarters, her office had received complaints anonymous and signed about racial bias in boarding treatment by Horizon Airlines. Not overt, never written, always coded. Things like, "Your staff seemed unsure when I presented my first-class ticket. I was asked to confirm my seat twice while others walked through. They scanned me, then told me to wait for verification, as if I didn't belong." Ava read every single one, and she remembered. At 27, she flew coach to pitch a Series A investment. Jeans, natural curls, red-eye flight. She was asked to step out of the line, told the gate wasn't open yet. 2 minutes later, a white man in khakis walked right past her into boarding. She missed that flight. She missed that deal. But she never missed a detail after that. So today, at 44, Ava Monroe, CEO of Monroe Equity, chairwoman of Skybridge Capital, and 25% funder of Horizon Airlines, boarded alone, unannounced, unarmed, unmistakably composed. Because when systems rot, they don't send a memo. They show their decay in moments like this. Subtle, routine, casual disrespect. And the true test of power is how long you're willing to be underestimated. So yes, when Marissa tore her boarding pass in front of a full crowd, Ava felt it. But she'd felt worse. Because power like hers isn't loud. It's documented. verified, logged, and about to be unleashed. At that moment, the male TSA agent leaned toward her, less aggressive now. "You sure you booked this seat?" Ava turned her head, finally, and looked him dead in the eye. "I didn't just book it," she said. "I paid for the plane." She didn't flinch, didn't step back, didn't even blink, and that scared them more than shouting ever could. "You're holding up real guests," Marissa snapped, voice cutting through the lounge like static. She stepped closer now, arms folded, eyes locked like a warden at roll call. Behind her, the first-class sign blinked quietly. "Priority boarding, Group 1. A man in a tailored blazer whispered to his wife. "She's still standing there?" The woman shrugged, but neither looked away. People weren't boarding. They were watching. "You're causing a scene," the second TSA officer said, his tone flat but rising. "Do we need to escort you?" Ava's phone was still in her hand. Still live. Still connected. The voice on the other end stayed silent, recording, logging, witnessing. Marissa took a deep breath, then said it like a verdict. "We've confirmed you're not in our system. That seat doesn't exist under your name, so either step aside or step off the flight." Lies don't need to be loud. They just need to be certain. Ava tilted her head slightly. "I was scanned. The ticket was cleared." Marissa smirked. "Then show me the receipt." She didn't ask anyone else for one. Behind her, a junior staffer, Zoe, 20-something, nervous, looked up from the screen she was manning. Her brows pulled slightly. She tapped her keyboard. Then again, but she said nothing. Yet, Marissa waved a hand toward security. "This is now an FAA compliance issue." The words were sharp, official-sounding, enough to blur truth from protocol. The male officer stepped forward, hand near Ava's elbow. "We're escorting you now." Then came the line that shifted the air. "Do not touch me." Ava's voice didn't rise, but the stillness around it did. The officer froze mid-motion. The crowd sensed it. Something had shifted, tilted, bent. From the far end of the gate, a tall man in business casual lowered his phone from his face. "She's not resisting," he said aloud. Another voice chimed in. "She's answering calmly. That's not a threat." Zoe, still silent, pressed 2 more keys. Her screen blinked. "Sayat ein ampere, Ava Monroe. Verify." She looked up, her mouth opened. But before she could speak, Marissa's voice cut through again. "Security, remove her." The command was sharp, practiced. The moment wasn't, because the lie had already started to unravel digit by digit, name by name. And Ava? She just whispered, more to the phone than the room. "Log that, every word." The officer's hand hovered half-extended, half-hesitant. He was waiting for resistance, but Ava Monroe gave him nothing. No push, no words, no anger, just a slow, deliberate breath, then silence. It wasn't submission. It was control. "You need to come with us," he tried again, softer this time. Ava stayed where she was, not frozen, not panikstet, planted, like the marble beneath her heels had grown roots. "I won't ask again," the other officer said, more forcefully now. She turned to him, finally. Her tone, even, sharp enough to cut, but calm enough to shame. "What policy are you citing? What exact code requires you to detain a paying passenger without verification?" He blinked. He didn't know. And that moment, that beat of hesitation was all she needed. Ava raised her phone slightly, not to record, to signal. The voice on the other end came through, smooth and steady. "Protocol R5 escalation confirmed. Audio and transcript live. All activity time. Stamped." Ava nodded once, then looked directly at Marissa. "We log everything, especially lies." The lounge chilled. People weren't just filming now. They were listening. A man in a leather briefcase leaned in toward a woman beside him. "Did she say protocol? What is this?" The woman replied without looking away. "That's not just a passenger." Marissa's jaw tensed. She gestured quickly toward the junior staffer, Zoe. "Pull her name from the manifest now." Zoe froze, hands hovering above the keyboard. "I already did," she said, barely above a whisper. Marissa didn't hear it or chose not to. "She's wasting our time," she snapped. "You don't look like first class. You look like trouble." Gasps. Quiet but real. One from the left. Another from behind Ava. The temperature of the room changed again. Not just cold. Tense. Because some insults aren't just words. They're patterns. They're echoes. And this echo was old. Familiar. And finally being witnessed. Ava didn't react. She didn't have to. Instead, she spoke once more, only 4 words, low and clear. "You just failed the test." At first, they watched in silence. Phones out. Eyebrows raised. Mouths closed. But silence can only survive so long before it cracks. "I saw her scan in," said a woman near the window, mid-40 seconds, conference badge still clipped to her blouse. Her voice wasn't loud, but it was enough. She didn't jump the line. She didn't skip security. They scanned her, then told her to wait. 2 seats down, a younger man in a linen blazer nodded slowly. "She's not doing anything wrong. They're just trying to make her look like she island." The shift wasn't loud. It was collective. Eyeballs moved. Shoulders turned. The gate wasn't just facing Ava now. It was facing the mirror of itself. Marissa tried to hold control. "You all need to stay out of this, for your own safety." But the words felt tired, scripted. Like a flight announcement nobody believed anymore. From the back of the crowd, a voice cut through. "Nah, this isn't about policy, it's about power." Heads turned. It was an older black man, salt and pepper beard, traveler's cap in hand. He wasn't angry. He was exhausted. And that made it louder. "I've flown first class for 26 years, he continued. "Never once been asked to prove it, until I flew in this skin." Someone clapped once, then another. Marissa turned red. But Ava? She didn't smile. She didn't gloat. She just nodded once toward the man. Acknowledgement, not victory. Zoe, still behind the counter, looked like she wanted to speak again, but Marissa beat her to it. "Enough!" she shouted. "All of you step back, final warning." But it was too late, because the gate had turned into a courtroom. And Marissa? She wasn't the judge anymore. She was the exhibit. Ava turned slightly to face the room. "I didn't ask for anyone to speak, but I thank you for doing it." That line didn't command. It invited. And suddenly, being quiet felt like complicity. Voices rose not in chaos, but in clarity. "She's right. This isn't normal. This needs to be seen." And every camera that had started as curiosity had now become testimony. The room was no longer on her side. And Marissa knew it. But some people, when exposed, don't retreat. They double down. "She's refusing to comply," Marissa snapped. "Which makes her a risk." That word risk landed like a gavel. Not law. Just loud. Ava stayed still. She didn't blink. Didn't flinch. Just watched. "She's disrupting flight operations," the first officer added, uncertain. "This could be considered obstruction." Zoe finally found her voice. "But she's on the manifest," she said, quietly but clearly. "I rechecked. Ava Monroe, seat 1 Ampere, cleared by TSA." Marissa turned, eyes blazing. "Then explain why she's not showing in the boarding system." Zoe shook her head. I don't know. Could be back-end sync. It happens." "It doesn't happen," Marissa hissed, "unless someone messes with the data." Ava's eyes narrowed, just slightly. She knew that tone. It wasn't protocol. It was fear, dressed as authority. The kind of fear that lashes out before it crumbles. "She's violating FAA compliance," Marissa continued. "I'm escalating this." And then she turned to Ava, eyes sharp. "You can either leave voluntarily, or we'll have you blacklisted from Horizon permanently." A gasp from the back. Someone dropped their coffee cup. It echoed like a verdict. Ava looked her straight in the eye. "You think this is about a seat?" Her voice was low, controlled. "You think I flew here to fight for armrest space?" No one moved. Ava took one small step forward, not aggressive, just present. "I came here to see what happens when no one's watching. But now?" She glanced around at the crowd, The phones, the blinking gate screen. Everyone's watching. Marissa tried to regain control. Security, restrain her. Now. But neither officer moved. One of them, clearly younger, cleared his throat. Ma'am, she hasn't broken any laws. She's standing still. She's being recorded. Marissa looked around. Everyone was filming. And Ava? She raised the phone to her lips, like a mic. Timestamp this. Gate B7, the 7th of September, 9:26 a.m. False accusations escalated without cause. The gate, once quiet, now buzzed with a new electricity. This wasn't chaos. It was clarity. And clarity is dangerous to those who build their power on confusion. Marissa's hands were shaking now, but her voice sharp as ever. You're wasting our time, she snapped. Her eyes scanned the crowd, daring them to disagree. None spoke. Not yet. Then she reached into the officer's hand, snatched the boarding pass Zoe had reprinted, and held it up high. This, she declared, is not your seat. This is not your flight. And before anyone could stop her, she tore it, clean down the center. The sound was thin, but in that silence, it roared. Gasps. From every direction. Even Zoe covered her mouth. Ava stood still. She didn't reach for the shredded paper. She didn't plead. She just watched. Marissa leaned in, whispering through clenched teeth. Enjoy, coach, or better yet, get off my plane. That wasn't policy. That was personal, and it rippled through the room like a slap. Two men in business suits lowered their phones, not out of fear but out of shame. A woman near the back shook her head, whispered to her partner. They're not even pretending anymore. One of the TSA officers, the younger one, took a slow step back. Not retreat. Recognition. He had just seen a line crossed. Not broken, shattered. And Ava? Still not a word. Still no raised voice. Just the soft exhale of someone who'd waited long enough. She bent down, picked up her carry-on, looked at the torn pass in Marissa's hand, then passed it, and said, to no one in particular, silence isn't weakness, it's evidence. The crowd stirred again. Zoe, trembling now, spoke. Miss Kent, I think you need to see this. But Marissa had already turned away, walking fast, phone to ear, pretending to escalate, but really retreating, because something had changed. Ava hadn't raised her voice, but the room had already decided who to listen to. Ava didn't rush, didn't break stride. She simply stepped aside just enough to face the terminal window, just enough to speak freely. And then she made the call. One button. No password. No hesitation. The voice on the other end answered immediately. Confirmed. That was all Ava needed. But for the rest of the airport lounge, it was only the beginning. She turned slightly, her voice low but unmistakably clear. Initiate Protocol R5. Full reversal. Notify Skybridge. Pull all pending disbursements. The silence after that? It wasn't confusion. It was impact, like thunder after lightning. No one saw it coming, but everyone felt it. Zoe froze mid-keystroke. Marissa turned back, slowly, as if her name had been called from a list of the condemned. Excuse me? She asked, trying to laugh. Ava didn't answer. The man with the salt and pepper beard whispered to someone beside him. Skybridge? That's a capital fund. Big. Billions. Another voice near the coffee stand added, Wait, Ava Monroe? That's her? And just like that, the dots began to connect. Because she hadn't come here to prove anything. She came to document what they would do when they thought she was no one. She'd given them every chance to do the right thing. Now, she was removing the cushion of their comfort. Repeat that, said the voice on the line. Ava spoke slower this time. Skybridge will not fund prejudice. Cancel all remaining tranches. Recall liquidity options. Notify board compliance. A murmur swept through the room like a slow wave. A tsunami of realization. Zoe stepped back from the desk, almost whispering, Oh my God, we just cut our own funding. Marissa took 2 sharp steps forward. You can't do that. Ava turned toward her finally. I already did. Her voice didn't rise, but the floor felt like it shifted beneath them. Who do you think you are? Marissa shouted now, red-faced. Ava didn't blink. The reason your airline still flies. It didn't take long. You could almost hear the internet catching up with the room. Whispers gave way to searches. Searches gave way to gasps. And then, from the far side of the gate, a voice called out, "Holy, that's Ava Monroe." Heads turned. Someone else confirmed. Skybridge Capital. Monroe Equity. She's the one who bought out Greenjet. Suddenly, the boarding lounge wasn't a gate. It was a press conference. And every phone, now live. Marissa stepped back, stammering. "That's not possible. We would have been informed." Zoe, still pale, responded quietly. "She didn't want you informed. That was the test." Ava hadn't moved. No smile. No performance. Just presence. Because real power doesn't announce itself. It reveals who was pretending all along. The older black man in the traveler's cap nodded slowly, almost in reverence. "She doesn't need to prove it," he said aloud. "She owns it." A pause. And then, one by one, the others joined in. "That's her. She funds this airline? She's the reason we haven't gone bankrupt." Marissa was spiraling now. She pointed at Ava's phone, desperate. "You can't just cancel $5 billion like it's a dinner reservation." Ava finally met her eyes again. "That wasn't $5 billion. That was the last $5 billion. The air left the room, like the pressurization had failed at 30,000 feet. Zoe, unable to hold it anymore, turned her screen outward for everyone to see. "Passenger manifest. Seat 1 Ampere. Name, Ava D. Monroe. Status, executive clearance. Investor class, alpha tier, the final dagger." It wasn't just that she had a seat. She had a seat at the table, the one Marissa would never be invited to. A man from behind the desk, one of the senior staff, approached cautiously. "Miss Monroe," he said, voice firm but respectful, "we deeply apologize for this. Please allow us to—" She raised a hand. "Don't finish that sentence," she said, "because I'm not here for apologies." She turned to the rest of the room. "I'm here for accountability." The ripple wasn't instant. It was slow, heavy, like shame soaked into the carpet. Marissa took a full step back, eyes darting, looking for someone, anyone, to stand beside her. No one moved. Even the TSA officers lowered their hands. No longer agents of order, just bystanders to their own mistake. Zhu sat down, quiet, eyes fixed on the blinking terminal screen, where Ava's name still glowed in bold white letters. The man in the linen blazer, the one who chuckled earlier, couldn't meet her eyes now. He adjusted his collar, coughed into his sleeve, suddenly interested in anything else. The older woman with the conference badge clasped her hands. She stepped forward. "I want to say I'm sorry," she said. Ava didn't nod, didn't blink, just listened. The woman hesitated. "I didn't speak up earlier. I should have." Ava turned to her gently. "You still did more than most." And then her voice deepened, not louder, just heavier. "But remember, everyone plays a role, including silence." That landed. Zoe put her head in her hand. Marissa tried to recover. "This was a systems failure," she muttered. "Back-end error, a syncing issue." Ava cut her off. "The system worked exactly how you designed it. No anger, just clarity. Just the sound of truth pressing down like gravity." The senior staffer who had approached earlier looked visibly shaken. "Miss Monroe, please," he began, but Ava stopped him with a look. Then she reached into her bag, pulled out a folder, not thick, just a few pages, each one with time-stamped entries, digital screenshots, anonymous complaints, cross-referenced by employee badge numbers. She handed it to Zoe. "This has been happening for months." Zoe opened it, hands trembling, her face drained of color. "I recognize these," she whispered. Marissa made one final attempt. "You can't use internal data without legal process." Ava turned her head slowly. "I'm not suing the company, Marissa. I own 25% of it." Another silence. This time, permanent, because some people recover from embarrassment. Others dissolve into it. And in that moment, everyone saw clearly. This wasn't just about one woman at Gate B7. This was about a culture that had finally met its reckoning. Ava didn't stay angry. She didn't have to, because power doesn't seek revenge. It seeks results. And she was here to rebalance, not destroy. She looked around the gate, not as a victim, not even as a CEO, but as a mirror for every system that asked black women to be twice as qualified to be treated half as decent. She turned to Zoe, whose hands still held the folder. "Take this to your internal compliance team," Ava said. Her tone was clear, professional. "Flag every report that matches, open an audit, quiet if possible, public if necessary." Zoe nodded, tears welling but not from fear, from the rare weight of being trusted. Ava turned next to the senior staffer. "I need a direct call with your VP of Operations by noon today." "Yes, ma'am," he replied instantly. No protest, no ego, just action. And then, finally, Ava looked back at Marissa. The woman had gone pale, chest rising, jaw clenched but silent. Ava stepped closer, not to humiliate, to clarify. "This isn't personal, it's structural." Marissa swallowed hard. I didn't mean to." Ava stopped her with a raised hand. "I believe you. A beat. But intent doesn't erase impact." Marissa's eyes dropped, and in that moment, Ava did something no one expected. She handed back the torn ticket, still ripped, still broken, but returned. "What you do next with this is up to you." And that silence, it was louder than any punishment. Because accountability without humiliation is how systems actually change. A few feet away, the older black man with the traveler's cap watched the entire exchange. Then he stepped forward, slow, steady. He held out his hand to Ava. "Thank you," he said simply, "for showing what grace looks like." She shook it, firm and warm. "We don't have to shout to be heard," she replied. "We just have to show up and stand still." The lounge was quiet now. Not because the tension had vanished, but because the truth had settled. Ava stood in the center of it all, not triumphant, just resolved. En attendant approached quietly. "Miss Monroe, we're ready for you to board." She glanced at the torn pass still in Marissa's hands, then nodded. "No rush," she said. "Let the crew reset first." Because sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is take your time. One by one, the crowd parted. Not like she was a celebrity, like she was earned respect. And as she walked, people watched. Some with awe, some with guilt, some with newfound understanding. No one spoke, not until she reached the gate. Zoe called after her softly, but urgently, "Miss Monroe, will you come back?" Ava turned. "If you fix what needs fixing, I won't have to." She handed Zoe her card. No logo, just a number, a name. Then stepped through the gate. No applause, no music, just motion. The plane door hadn't closed. This time, the flight waited for her. As she disappeared into the jet bridge, the screen above gate B7 flickered, then refreshed. "Now boarding. Group 1, Ava Monroe." And now, to you watching this, where are you watching from? Drop your city in the comment. Do you believe in dignity? In quiet justice? Then don't scroll past. Because stories like this don't just entertain, they expose. They challenge. They shift things. Hit like, hit subscribe, and share this with someone who thinks silence means weakness. Let them know the most powerful woman in the room isn't always the loudest. Sometimes, she's just the one who doesn't move. Fade to black.